Hello, this is Bill Gallagher with Straight Talk. Nice to be back with you. We're talking for a few weeks. There's some small training bites on restoring a culture of trust in the workplace. Today, I want to focus on nipping it in the bud. One of the primary, top three complaints in the workplace is that problematic behavior is allowed to continue by management, or people are not bold enough to be direct if there's a problem in the workplace. I had a mentor who was a very, very special man in my life. He was both a bank vice president, and then he was also a senior pastor of a church. And in college, he knew that many of us were going to go out and have our own businesses and the like. And he said, I want to share something very, very important to you that can really build a strong career and relationships. He said, whenever you have a problem in the workplace, whenever an issue of discomfort or conflict arises, the most important thing you can do is nip it in the bud. In other words, deal with it quickly. Nip it in the bud. And so for those of you, I like gardening. I like growing flowers, plants. I'm not a farmer, but I like landscaping and things like this. And one of the things that I have learned in landscaping is that if you do not prune, like a vine, let's look at a vine, for example, in a vineyard. If you do not prune that every year, if you don't cut it back almost to the nubs, the vine or the plant or the rose bush will start to grow wild and not be tameable. That's one of the things. If you allow an issue in the workplace to grow wild and to meander about, it doesn't look as attractive, it gets thorny all over the place, and it doesn't put out a good product or a good rose or grape the next year. And so that's one of the reasons why you have to nip it in the bud and deal with it very, very quickly. Here's an interesting thought. I've noticed that just we as people, if we have unresolved conflict anywhere in our life, but more specifically the workplace, and it's not dealt with, it just lays inside our head. It wakes us up at 2 o'clock in the morning. What we start to do is we start filling the blanks in our mind, and we start creating scenarios that don't exist regarding that person. And so we build a case in our head, and it gets wilder and wranglier and less attractive with time, and rarely are we accurate about the problem that person has. And so it's so essential to nip it in the bud. The other thing we find that is if we don't deal with a problem quickly at work, the fruit is not as good as time goes on. It gets smaller, it becomes bitter, it's more sour. And so if you're in the workplace and there's a group of people that are striving to have strong morale and be honest with one another, and that's not happening because problems are not being dealt with by leadership. Problems are not being dealt with by individuals. It becomes a more bitter workplace to work in. The other thing that we see is that when leadership is not responsible enough, and this is an illustration, you know what I mean, if they're not responsible enough to cut away or prune the dead wood with their employees or with management, because they're ruining the whole product, that is huge, and people lose confidence. They lose trust in their leadership if they're too passive and they're unwilling to deal with the problems. Some of the benefits of nailing an issue or cutting it into bud or correcting a problem in the workplace is that the confidence and trust and leadership and strong management, these are not wimpy leaders. These are leaders who are protective of their staff, and they're bold, and they're not fear-based. So the manager that does this regains the confidence and the trust, and the leadership and the team grows strong. You have more satisfied employees. They don't want to work in a workplace culture where their leader, who's supposed to protect them and keep them safe, is afraid of conflict. That is a major turnoff. We see that the retention of staff is higher. There's less turnover. The team overall is more in tune, more honest, more transparent, and they feel a lot more satisfied to go to a job when everybody knows that it's better to nip it in the bud. This has been Straight Talk with Bill Gallagher. Certainly, if you can subscribe to my channel, I have a lot of training bites. I got a couple of more on the workplace to rebuild trust, to get that level of foundation that's supposed to be true, very, very true. And then after that, we're coming back to talk about restoring trust in marriage and the home. We'll be back with you then. Thank you.